Okay, it's time for a little bit more in-depth on what I have to do here next to get this structure back in order. What I've done here is I've done some bench work straightening this piece out, and I've done my best to get this lined up right here and lined up right here. But you can see that there's definitely a problem. This part is sticking over way too far, and at first it had me asking a bunch of questions and double checking measurements. So I was a little bit concerned because of this overlap here that maybe this was too low, but I took some time and I made some measurements from here to here on both sides, and or maybe I should say this was too high, not too low. But I made some measurements. I was afraid that when I was pulling, because I was pulling up slightly, that I may have changed this level. That's the kind of stuff that you have to worry about. So taking this measurement, and it's very difficult to get to an exact spot because find the exact spot here, everything's round. But I think it's within 1/8 of an inch. So even if this is a little bit high, I can get it in the door adjustment and in the fender adjustment, and it won't be noticed. So there were some other questions. If you look closely at this, you see that it's not straight here. If you look at the one on the other side, it's straight as an arrow. So figuring out where this exactly belongs is still subject to debate in my mind. It also makes it hard for me to know if this is exactly straight. Also, not having access to the other side, I believe that this bend here is where that extra piece, the other piece that goes on the outside, will fit right into here. So I think this is on purpose, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'll get to discover that when I'm test fitting the outside piece. So in order to get this piece to fit, there were a couple of other questions. If you look at this closely, you can see that this does not come as far forward as this, which made me wonder about some things. But I think what has really happened is that this material here, there's a bend right here that I believe needs to be flattened out to bring this forward another 1/8 to get it to line up with this. I took a measurement from here to here on the other side, and they're exact. So this is where it's supposed to be. This thing needs to come forward. The other thing that has to come forward is right here. This, although it's very difficult to tell here, this piece is arced this way a little bit, and I think it needs to come this way just a little bit, and that's based on observations that I made on the other side. So I think this is going to get maybe a little help from the vise here to pivot right at this point and bring this out just a little bit, and then I'll probably have to bring this back to offset it. So that is one of the things I have to do in order to get this to move. I'm pretty sure that right in here I need to push this in, which will actually bring this piece out. I mean, when I put it on the bench, I'll brace this and I'll bang on this to try to get this to move over. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to measure that yet, other than test fit it a couple times. But I think once I do that, that'll get it. I'll be able to bring that in line, and once that lines up correctly, then I can make the final adjustments up and down. The other thing, you can kind of see here that this is still, it's pretty straight here and here because I've done a little bit of work straightening this, but I missed this part. So I'm going to have to move this over in order to have a straight edge here to weld against. I don't think that that's going to be too significant to the structure of the car, if there's a little gap there or not, but it'll just make it way easier when we weld it all together. Also, well, you can see there's a small gap here. I think that can be welded, or if maybe I'll take some time and pull this down just a little bit. Pull this piece down so that we have a square there. This is going to be the hardest part to weld because it's upside down, and there's really no good way to reach it from the top. So haven't quite figured out how we're going to do that yet, but I'll consult with cut and paste on the pasting operation. Maybe we'll come up with something. The other thing I did to know that I've got this the right distance, I used that side as a frame of reference. I went to the parts car, the Charger, and I measured this distance here from right where this first spot weld is, and it's actually it's parallel all the way across. It's 62 inches from the top of this edge to the top of that edge. And this is a tool that I learned that they have much more sophisticated versions of this tool where you can just turn a little knob and adjust the length, but I didn't want to buy one of those, so I just fabricated it. One of I use this to measure square on the Charger with a slightly different length, but this one, now that I've adjusted the length, allows me to go over here and I can put that right on top of that seam there. It's much easier with two hands, and you can see it's right there. So, and when I check that same distance up here, it's the same and all the way back. So I've got this thing really close to where it needs to be, at least as far as the part that is from here back. If you look closely down this, you can see that it still comes in here just a little bit. I am not certain that that's going to be a problem. I literally think I can pull this last bit out, and this being in by a 1/4 inch from where it is, I think is an acceptable variance, and because I'll be able to put this in the right place for the most part. And even the bottom, I can bend the lip a little bit one way or the other to get it to line up. So I tugged on this thing really hard, and I made a big mess down here. I had to straighten it all back out, and I got part of it, but I don't think I have all of it. And I mean, you can still see there's a little divot right here, which I can't. I'd have to cut the back panel off and try to find a way to pound that out from the inside, or just pull really hard and hope that I don't bend something else. When I'm pulling on this here, I put the frame machine here, and I was bracing it right here with a big piece of metal. And even when I was doing that, I could see the whole thing moving this way just a little bit. Now, I didn't change anything, but it was concerning me that if I pulled much harder, that I would start adjusting it into places where I didn't want it to go. So that's the next step to get this right. And when I get bored with that, you can see now that this is too low, and so I can just put the jack under it and bring it back up, and then also unbend this floor by putting the jack under and pounding and all that. And one of my next steps will be to get this part of the floor right. This part is going to be a lot more work. One of the things I discovered, though, as I had this panel off, is that suddenly I have access to the firewall. So once I get this panel bent, adjusted to where it needs to fit, and then the outside one adjusted, then I'll get to this and what of this I need to remove in order for me to be able to pull that firewall forward and start to get it to line up with the pattern that's on this panel. Well, that's what's next, and just a little bit of my thought processes on how I approach these things. And I'll be back. Either I'll bring you some of the activity of the actual straightening, and then we'll talk about it more after it's done. Okay, so I decided to go after this first. I tried to put it in the vise, but this piece of metal is in the way. So I decided that trying to use the prime, this reverse claw, or whatever you want to call it, on the porta power is going to be the best way. So we're going to see if we can move that a little bit. Guess I should have taken a measurement. I'll take a measurement right now. Just stay in place there. Okay, we're talking just under 3 from there to there. I don't know if the round piece is the best idea because it can roll on it, but it seems to be the right size. Go a little more. It's at exactly 3 right now. No, that didn't change anything. Maybe it did. One more time. Doesn't feel different. All right. Maybe something with a little less roll to it. It's definitely got pushing power, but it's not pushing the right way. something to hold that. Slide it up. Okay, so plan B didn't work. Plan C is going to be try to lean down on this and get this whole thing to come forward with the pipe wrench. I think it's got potential. About a 16th. I'll have to bend the machine or the end surface back a little bit when I'm done. Obviously the clamp is just to hold the board in place. Hard to tell by the measurement. Thank goodness for aluminum. Trick will be move this up without moving that back. So just about 2 3/4 to the tape. need to put something in between there. I bend it back. Bend this back. Almost. Find something to stick in there. Keep this the same distance. We got a couple decent sized wedges. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know. Grab onto that, bring it up, should truly pivot, I hope. I don't know if it's flat enough. I'll try. This guy needed one of the other things I forgot to mention. That's close enough to test, I think. Quickly you run out of bench space. Let's see, this guy right here definitely is sticking up too much. I think this, you can't really see the angle too well, but the angle is poor. This has got a curve on it. I think this needs to flatten out right here some more, and that should give some more material to that. I offer no promises about the camera's ability to not fall while I'm banging on this thing. Very much want the energy to transfer to this surface spread out. I could lay this flat on the bench, except this one bracket over here sticks down and gets in the way. This is pretty thick metal, and I'm not too particularly concerned about it being perfect, so probably just going to give it the big hammer treatment. We have, this edge was a little bit too far back too, so I was thinking that this might, getting that better might bring this part enough forward to line up with the bumper. And you can see this is kind of, it's definitely down more than it used to be, maybe a little bit more right there. Alright, I think right here needs to come down in order to try to get this to move up. Right there. Really have no idea. I'm going to have to go fit it in the car to see if what kind of effect I've had. As you recall, there was a 3/4 inch gap. This needed to come this way. Earlier on, this thing was bent a lot worse, and I just did a bench work to straighten it. This whole thing was caved in, way in here, so this part was low. I really kind of got it pretty close to parallel. It's bulging out just a little bit here, but this is past where the sheet metal attaches, so I don't think that's a problem. There was a dent there that I've cleared out, and there was a big divot here. This was sticking like this, so, or maybe, no, it was actually the other way. It was inward. I was pounding it from inside. So she's coming along. Let's see what else. Oh, I want to work on that one on the bottom yet. Try to straighten that out a little bit. Question is, can it just be straightened, bent down? Or do I have to do something more? Basically, the question here is, I think my first attempt is going to be to just bend this down. But if that's not enough, then I'll have to come on the back here and pound this out and make this distance just a little bit longer. But I'm going to start with just trying to bend that. I have two pairs of these now. This pair was a Christmas present. These are 8R vice grips. Still a little high in this area. Not striving for perfection here. This is not a classic muscle car restoration. Just trying to get it so that when I put the thing back together, it all fits. And the parts that were pieces attached to the car all align where they should. Probably do a little bit of work here, flattening out that edge just a little bit more. We're in the ballpark here. Let's see, I got that one, and that one. Made an attempt. Made an attempt. Okay, I guess the next thing to do is fit it in the car. Okay, so the test fit uncovered that this didn't really move at all, and so I'm going to try another technique. Measure this from here. So let's say there, and it's right around 23. I still need about 3/4 of an inch. So let's see if this baby will actually move that far. Oh yeah, there's 22. Ooh, that's going to be really close. Okay. If this really does it, that'll be a lot easier than I was expecting. Looks like I got about 3/4 of an inch there. Adaptation, improvisation.